Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Standard Protocol. I'm your host, Matt Sutter. Thank you for joining us again. This is episode number 9. We appreciate your listenership and your followership. Again, we're up and running on SoundCloud and YouTube, so please tell a friend, have them tell a friend. The more people we can reach, the better. And hopefully our advice out there is hitting home with some of you, and hopefully we're getting you through some tough situations out there. So please spread the word. The email inbox here, standardprotocolpodcast@gmail.com. standardprotocolpodcast@gmail.com. And I wanted to go ahead and open the show here this week with an email from a listener. And the question essentially is, how do you get up and running on a podcast? How do you get started if you want to start your own? Is there a lot of money that needs to be invested or a lot of work? And then how do you come up with material for the show? And that's a great question from the email inbox there. Those are all great questions. The first thing I'll say is no, you don't need to invest a lot of money. We run this one off of an iPad and a few decent quality mics because that's one of the biggest complaints that I hear with podcasts is that the audio quality is terrible on some of them, and that is true. I have heard a few lately where I'm actually surprised they're publishing them the way they are because the sound quality is so bad. But just get yourself a good mic, good USB mic to plug it into your iPad, and there's a lot of different softwares available on the iPad for free that you can use to create these things. And we don't do a lot of post-production editing. Obviously, you can get pretty carried away with that if you want, but this is pretty much a rough cut podcast. We're not live, but we're recording it live. And so anything that happens, if I stutter or stumble over my words, you hear it. It is what it is. And we don't edit a lot of that stuff out just because we're a low budget production here. So we're trying to put the best product out there with what we have. And we're not getting too carried away with it at this point. So it's really not that difficult to get up and running. Give it a try. Record a few before you go live, before you put it out there for the world. But obviously, once you do put it out there, one of the things that I've learned is you have to be fairly thick-skinned because there are going to be people that, it's like anytime you post something on social media, people are going to take shots at you and you just got to, see it for what it is. It's not, you just be thick-skinned and be open to criticism, I guess. The first few episodes that we had, we got some feedback that we were very negative and very, it was almost unlistenable, somebody said, because we were so negative and so, there's a B word they used, it rhymes with itchy. That's, to each their own, if that's how it was perceived. I went back and listened to a few of our earlier ones and I didn't necessarily see it, but I guess I can see how someone might have that impression if they're a first-time listener and they don't know the intent of the show or what we're trying to accomplish. So I think we've changed. I think everyone, we get a little bit better. We're on number 9 now. I think probably around 5 or 6 is when we found our groove and got really honed in on what we intend to tackle here. It takes you a little bit of time to find your niche. And as far as the material for the show goes, these topics that I hit on every week, usually I have about 3, 4, maybe 5 a week that I hit on here, and I just jot them down throughout the week on Notepad here. And really, I just sit here with these bullet pointed items and I riff for, I try to keep it around 20, 21 minutes each week. And it's really not that difficult because we've left the topic of the show open so broadly. We're not narrowly focused. And that's the piece of advice I would give you if you're going to start your own podcast. Don't be too narrowly focused because then you are going to come up with issues having enough material to discuss every week. But if you leave a broad focus like us, the life advice for millennials and Gen Zs in the workplace and in life, that's a very broad topic. So there's a lot of different things that we can talk about each week. If you're narrowly focused, like if your podcast is going to be all about a, 1972 Ford Mustang, well, yeah, you're going to have an issue, coming up with something to talk about that particular car every week. Maybe not if you're really a car buff and you really know that thing inside and out, but I don't think your listeners are going to be as in tuned to, just one car, a different topic on one car. Now, if you want to talk about old muscle cars, there's a lot of different cars you can talk about, a lot of different ways you can go with that. So leave the focus broad. Don't get too narrowly focused with it, would be my advice. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight into how to get up and running and what to gear your show around. Best of luck to you. If you need any other advice, we're here, standardprotocolpodcast@gmail.com. And with that, I wanted to roll into the first topic of the week. So the first topic of the week kind of dovetails off the email there. First, obviously, there's a first time for everything, and I wanted to talk about that anxiety you feel whenever you're going into a new first. And I remember, first day of school as a kid, every year I got anxiety. It didn't matter, by the time I'd been through, high school, I'd done it 12 times. I still, that first day, always got that anxiety and those butterflies in the stomach, and you're always just nervous and stressing like no other, and it's just a tough time. And then you get into the adult world where you're going into careers and your first day of a new job or your first day of a new assignment within that job. There's always that anxiety that comes back around, and it doesn't matter how old I get, I still feel it every time. And then even as you get settled into a role, different things within that role where, different meetings you're taking on, where it's a first time you're meeting in front of a group of people, or your first time you're tackling a certain topic in front of a group of people. That anxiety always comes back around. And, if you're someone like myself who has had significant anxiety issues in life, and, in fact, to the point that I'm medicated for it, it just never seems to go away. And there's always the newness of anything. It always brings up those same feelings that you had, when you were a kid. And I think for some, I think that's normal. I think if you don't have some feelings of newness and anxiety, you might not be as self-aware about things as you should be. You always want to set your best foot forward and make your best impression, because you only get that first chance to make that impression. And so I think there's always going to be that anxiety if you're self-aware and if you're aware of how you're coming off to others. Otherwise, if you just don't care, you probably don't see the same level of anxiety that a lot of us feel. A lot of us always want to please others, and we always want to, put our best foot out there and do it right the first time. And so I think that's where that anxiety comes from. And I think that's normal. Look at everything you do in your career. I mean, I look back at my career in law enforcement. The first time I ever went on a dog deployment, there's some anxiety there. First time I ever, got up in front of a group of people to give a presentation. There's anxiety there. And I still, to this day, I have trouble. I get, dry mouth and things, and it doesn't matter the size of the group. It could be 5 people. It could be 500 people. It's all the same. I always get the same feelings. So, if you're out there, if you're experiencing those issues, it's okay. We've all been in that boat. It does get a little bit easier over the years as you do things more and more repetitions does make things smoother. It makes things easier. So push yourself to do that. If you have trouble with public speaking, if you have trouble with tackling those new tough assignments, volunteer for more, because you will get better at it. You will, and things will become easier for you. It's hard to force yourself sometimes to do those things, but I have found the things that I used to really hate, like public speaking, I actually enjoy it now. I mean, hell, I have a podcast here where I sit here and talk for 20 minutes a week, and I put it out there for everybody in the world to see and hear. So, I understand that apprehension, and obviously avoidance is always easier, but if you truly want to get better, volunteer for more firsts, whether it's first times meetings with groups, first time speaking to people, first time with, a hazardous assignment. Always volunteer for more, because the more you do, the better you feel about it. The more you realize that being nervous and panicking about it isn't going to change it. So just get over that. Don't do it. If you're panicking before you go, speak in front of a group of people, it's not going to change the fact that you got to go talk to these people and you got to go speak. So just don't do it. Don't panic. It's not going to change you. It's not going to help you. Just go out there, get it done, confront your fear, and that really is the best way. Now, if it's public speaking, if that's what you're afraid of, start off with some smaller groups. Start off with people you're comfortable with, and give presentations in a controlled group environment that you're familiar with, and then work out to the bigger crowds or whatever. And I will tell you, I don't think I will ever be a good public speaker. I really feel that that's always going to be one of my Achilles heels is just getting up in front of a group of people and speaking, especially if I don't have a prepared presentation. If I'm just going off the cuff, or if it's a Q&A type thing. I enjoy Q&A type things because it gives me, the crowd is feeding me material to go off of or topics to discuss, and I enjoy that. But it's always easier if you've got a prepared PowerPoint or something that you're drawing off of, that you're comfortable with it. You know how to discuss every slide. Those are always easier. So try to set yourself up for success. Don't set yourself up for failure. Either do pre-prepared presentations that you can riff off of a PowerPoint, or go out there and face the fire and stand in front of a crowd and take questions. But either way, get yourself out there, start small, work your way into bigger groups. And, I still, to this day, I feel that anxiety and those butterflies every time I have to speak to people. Talk about TV interviews. I've done a lot of TV interviews, and every time the camera goes on, there's still that nervousness of, oh God, am I going to say something that's going to stick to the tape and they're going to use it against me, or it's going to be out there forever and I'm going to look like a moron? I always have that anxiety and that fear of being the guy that gets caught with that sound bite that sticks around forever, that nobody ever forgets. But in reality, you just got to go be yourself, and you just got to go do the best you can. And generally speaking, the media folks around here that we work with, they are, they're not going to make you look like an idiot. They're going to edit it well. They're going to do things to get the good sound bites, and, not the crazy ones. And so, obviously the more you do, the better you establish that relationship with the people that you're speaking to, and, the better things go. So firsts are always a challenge for everyone. And, it doesn't matter how old I get, I always get those butterflies. I always get that anxiety going into a first. So if you're feeling that at a young age and you're wondering, does it ever go away? No, it doesn't really, but it does get better. It does get easier to deal with that anxiety and with those firsts. So keep at it. Be tough. Be strong. People want you to succeed. When you get up in front of a group of people, especially like in a job interview type situation where you're speaking to a panel of people, even if it's just one or two people, the people on the other side of that table, they want to see you succeed. They don't want to sit through a terrible interview. So just be relaxed, be yourself, treat it as a conversation. And those are generally the best interviews that I see, the people that are casual and relaxed, because they know, there's not a lot of pressure. There's obviously pressure if you're trying to find a job and you're trying to put food on the table for your family. But the people on the other side of the table, they want to interview. They want to see a good interview. They don't want to see you fall on your face. So you've already got, they're already fans of yours as soon as you walk in the room, because they want to see you succeed. So just keep that in mind. It should be a relaxed environment. Treat it as a conversation, even if it's a very structured interview where they ask you questions and there's no interaction back and forth. It's just they ask you a question, you give an answer. They're still rooting for you. They still want to see you score well. They still want to see you do well, because they're looking for somebody to fill that job and they're looking for somebody to hire. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully, I know it's easier said than done, but hopefully that alleviates some of that pressure you feel when you're out there every day going into those firsts. There's a first time for everything. To quote Semisonic from the 90s, if you're familiar with the song Closing Time, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. And so there's always in life going to be those firsts. It doesn't matter how old you get. how far down the road, how successful you are, you're always going to have those firsts, and there's always going to be that bit of uncertainty when you go into that. It's normal. We all experience it. So hopefully just knowing that everyone experiences the same thing might put you at ease a little bit. With that, let's roll into topic number 2. Topic number 2. So we kind of touched on this during the first topic. We talked about anxiety a little bit and the anxiety that you have when you're with your firsts. And you heard me mention that I have, I've had significant anxiety issues throughout the course of my life to the point that I'm medicated for it. But it took me years to figure out what was going on with me when I would get in high pressure situations, and to finally go talk to somebody about it and to finally get some medication for anxiety. It changed my life. I am so much more relaxed and so much more at ease in any number of situations than I was before. So I would recommend for you, if you do feel that anxiety, if you do feel it taking over as you go to work, go to speak to somebody, go to do any type of a high risk assignment, if you are feeling those anxiety issues and you feel like they're hampering your ability to perform at your highest level, then by all means, I would recommend going and talking to a trained counselor or your physician. Find somebody that's qualified to give you the advice you need, and hopefully they can prescribe something if that's what it is. In fact, is anxiety. Hopefully they can prescribe you something to help you get through that. And I will tell you firsthand, the medications have really made a big difference in my life, and they've put me at ease in a number of situations where I would have otherwise been pretty uncomfortable. And so, it can be difficult for all of us to accept that we have a problem like that, especially something that could be medically induced. You always write it off as just nervousness, or, like we discussed in the previous topics, just the newness of a first. You always write it off, but when it persists, and when it's not just during the firsts, it's every time you go out to do something important, or every time you go to have a conversation with high-ranking people in your organization. If you're starting to feel those anxiety issues, I would highly recommend going and talking to somebody and explaining what you're feeling and how it's affecting you, because there's a good chance that you may need to get on something, some type of medication for that. And the medication, we always hear these horror stories of side effects of these medications. Me personally, I didn't feel any side effects when I started taking the medication. It just took the anxiety level down tremendously. And honestly, I felt a lot better about everything that was going on. So it's not, I'm not medicated to the point every day that I can't function. I'm actually medicated to the point that I function very well, and even better than I do if I'm not medicated. So, that's just my personal experience with anxiety. It can create a lot of issues, and it can keep, there are things that I know I have no doubt whatsoever, all the confidence in the world in myself that I can handle. But as soon as that anxiety kicks in, now all of a sudden my self-confidence and things plummeted. So if that's what you're experiencing, and you're seeing those patterns in everything that you do, you don't have that confidence in yourself because of that anxiety, please go speak with a professional and please get that taken care of, because it can be done very discreetly, very easily, and it won't disrupt the rest of your life. In fact, it'll probably improve a lot of areas of your life. So those of you, if you're comfortable sharing your anxiety stories, please hit us up on the email inbox, standardprotocolpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to trying to get that information out there so that we can help others that are experiencing the same thing, because I didn't confront it until I was in my late 30s. And I really wish I would have confronted it years and years earlier, because I know that it was there, and I know that it was a hindrance in a lot of situations. So don't wait too long. Please discuss that with somebody and try to get the help that you need. Okay, and the final topic for today that I wanted to touch on, and this one's going to take a little bit of time, so it's going to be the last one for the day. I had the question posed to me, why is becoming a leader and getting people to become leadership figures in their organizations, why is that so important to me? And that is a great question, and I'm glad somebody brought that up. I could go on for days about this, but for the essence of time, I've narrowed it down to 4 main reasons why and this is, I could probably give you 100 reasons, but here are the main 4 why I encourage you to take on leadership roles in your organization and learn how to become a leader, whether it's baptism by fire, where you put in for a promotion and you get it, and now all of a sudden you're in a leadership role, or whether you choose to just better yourself and go take a bunch of leadership courses through your organization, through in-service training, or through, even if you do a formalized, degree in management or leadership. I really encourage it. And here's why. Number one, it gives you the ability to resolve conflicts. And a lot of that is done through communicating well with others. And a lot of times people in leadership roles think that once you get into a leadership role, nobody can ever disagree with you, or you'll never have disagreements within the team you're in charge of or within your organization internally. And so, conflict resolution takes a back seat. And the fact of the matter is that's completely false. You're always going to need in any leadership role to know how to resolve conflicts and how to work with people and compromise and make sure that you're seeing everyone's perspective within the team, not just a select few or not just your own perspective. You have to see things from everybody's point of view, because the sooner you learn to do that, the sooner you'll be able to resolve conflict and the smoother your team will run. The second reason is closely tied to the first one. It's problem solving, because you learn how to solve problems. And these aren't always internal problems with employees or with coworkers. These are problems where you've got scheduling issues. You've got, a certain number of assignments that have to be done in a minimal amount of time. These are all problem solving skills that you learn in a leadership role. And because there is nobody else to turn to say, hey, you may have people higher up the chain than you. Whether or not they're going to be accessible to answer some of these questions, it remains to be seen. But you yourself have to take on the role of solving a lot of these problems. And, whether you're in a law enforcement role like I came from, or, you're in another field, there's always going to be things that pop up, and everybody looks to the first line supervisor and goes, okay, how do you want us to handle this? And you become very good at navigating those problems. You know what's worked in the past. You know what hasn't worked. Therefore, you know what to do and what not to do. So problem solving skills, again, the conflict resolution, that's huge with the employees and the personnel matters, but the problem solving as far as logistics and how we get something done, how we go out there and get the job done on a daily basis, you learn that when you're in a leadership role. You learn it more so than when you're just out there on the front lines. So the third thing is planning and delegation. And what I mean by that is planning how we're going to get something done. Here's the task at hand. We got to plan how we're going to get it done, and we got to figure out who to delegate to, who can do what, whose strengths and weaknesses we need to play off of to get something done. If you have somebody that's, very IT savvy, you might have them in charge of a certain project that's tailored to their needs, as opposed to somebody who's not very tech savvy. They're just the person to roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty. Well, you've got a job that they can do, so the delegation of tasks, the planning, and just going and tackling whatever the task at hand is, you learn that as a leader, and you learn how to make it easier on yourself as opposed to just throwing out assignments and hoping for the best. You learn whose strengths and weaknesses are what, and how you can play those into your favor to get a certain task done. And then the last thing that the fourth reason, and again, it's probably not the last one, but it's the last one I'm going to talk about today. Why is becoming a leader so important? It's for succession planning, because if you don't step up and you don't take on that leadership role, who's going to? And if somebody else does, are they going to do as good of a job at it as you would? That's the main complaint that I hear in the field, is that, well, we don't like the leadership as it is. Well, why didn't you step up? Why didn't you put in for a promotion? Well, I just don't have any desire. And that's okay. There are people that are content just being on the front lines their entire career. But at the end of the day, we need people with experience, with good decision-making abilities, with sound tactics to promote and be in these leadership roles, because if they don't, you're going to get people in those roles that aren't necessarily the best pick for the job, or haven't necessarily done enough to have the experience to really take on that leadership role and make positive change. So I've narrowed it down to 4 there: conflict resolution, problem solving, planning and delegation, and then succession planning. And those are probably the 4 biggest reasons why I encourage you to promote, to lead, to be informal leaders, up to the point where you're capable of being formal leaders. Just go out there, take on that leadership role, gain the trust and the respect of the people around you, and by all means, go out and conquer the world. So with that, I wanted to wrap up episode number 9. We appreciate you joining us here. And again, we're on SoundCloud, we're on YouTube. Tell a friend, spread the word. Shoot us an email, standardprotocolpodcast@gmail.com, standardprotocolpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you. And please stick with us, and we'll see you on the next one. Be safe out there.